Welcome to a brief primer of our newly launched B2B SaaS Rising 100 report in partnership with Sapphire Ventures. For those of you that are not yet familiar with the product, this is the third iteration of an effort of mapping the B2B SaaS landscape across Europe. But arguably, this is the most special one to date. And that is because we not only map 100 companies each year. Importantly, we look at the environments in which they operate. And that's been changing a lot over time, especially since 2022, over the past 18 months. And it's been very interesting to see how the 2024 cohort has reacted and adapted to these changes. So over 3 years, we had the opportunity of telling the stories of 215 unique startups. Some of them have been featured more than once, 2,500 investors, but most importantly, over 600 founders that, give life to the companies that we talk and write about. We had some notable graduates that are no longer included for this year's edition, and that is because they've graduated as unicorns over the past year or so, two of them being Penny Lane and Pigment, which were featured in past editions. And these are the sort of companies that the current cohort will benchmark themselves against progressing forward. And talking about the top 100, this is the full list divided by sector. For the full ranking, the report is available for download on our website. But let's have a look at the top 10 just to understand briefly the quality of the companies that we've been able to include this year. So topping the list is London-based V7, which is an AI company that we've also featured in our UK and Ireland leaderboard earlier in the year. At second spot, we have the highest new entry, Parloa, which is a conversational sales and customer service company based off of Berlin. And at third spot, we have Tynes, a cybersecurity company based in Dublin, which has been really the most consistent across the past 3 years, featuring in the top 10. In terms of stage and funding, we found some very interesting data points for this year's cohort, and particularly that the 2024 batch is a younger and dynamic one. These are two separate points that we can look at together in a second. So in terms of age, these startups are showing more potential sooner. So the share of startups operating at early stage for this year sits at 47%. And just as a reminder, Sifted categorizes a startup as early stage for any funding round up until and including Series A. That percentage was 31% in 2022. And this is just a testimony of how these startups are doing a lot sooner in the VC funding environment. They're also doing so with less money, and that's a reflection of how the ecosystem has changed. Capital is more costly and harder to come across, and the average funding for this year's cohort has gone down 24% from 96 million in 2022 to 73 million in 2024. And this is a very important point of how to manage your resources and how to be efficient with them. These companies are doing a lot of very interesting things, a lot of scalable things with less capital compared to before. In terms of new entries, 54% of the list is made up of new entries. 3 of them have been launched in 2023, with AutoGen AI launched in 2022. Again, a signal of how young and dynamic this cohort really is. In terms of sectoral distribution, it's very much a reflection of the time. Deep tech jumped up from 6% to 11%, and that includes all things AI as expected. Fintech rejoiced from 27% to 30% this year, again, in line with the rest of the ecosystem, with health tech, climate tech, and enterprise software topping the rest of the top 5. And in terms of subsectors, again, some expected trends such as dev tools and Gen AI occupying the top 5, Gen AI being going from 0% in 2022 to 7% in 2024, and then HR tech, CFO tech stack, and digital banking completing the top 5 sectors. In terms of geographical distribution, no real surprises here. The UK and Germany and France are the top 3 ecosystems in Europe and have been for years, and this is reflected in the list. Same thing for London, Berlin, and Paris on the right-hand side. This is not to say that there aren't any other hot hubs that we've covered this year. For example, Munich has 5 companies featured in the top 100, which again is a testimony of the sort of diversity of the companies that we've covered. In terms of further resources, we have in-depth interviews with a lot of the founders of the companies we've been able to feature. We have a pulse check of survey questions that we do each year, and generally just a very complete in-depth analysis of the state of B2B SaaS in Europe. Thanks.